Hey guys, how's it going? Kevin Cleary here with a knife video. I want to talk about something today that is a little bit troubling, not about a specific knife. I do have a hinderer here, as many of you'll know. Metal Complex, who we're going to be talking about, is quite a hinderer fan, so I thought in honor of that, I would make a hinderer sort of the main focus on the screen. I want to talk about Metal Complex being demonetized. That's a really, really sad and frustrating development. And so I just wanted to weigh in on it, more to bring attention to it. I know there are lots of creators with more influence than me that have commented on this, but I want to make sure no one is missed. And I want to, and also I want to put this video out there as a show of support. Metal Complex is someone whose content I enjoy, but someone I also consider a friend. And so, you know, I feel really, really bad for the whole situation. And anyway, I'm not going to get into a whole lot of that, but Metal Complex is a knife guy like us, right? He enjoys sharing his enthusiasm for knives in the form of reviews and discussions on YouTube, and I think that's great. Obviously, I feel the same way, and so, you know, it's really, really sad to see YouTube taking the approach that they have, and hopefully it's a mistake, right? Hopefully, you know, some intern or something went off half-cocked, and you know, quickly this is going to be all resolved and everything can move forward. If it's not, I fear for what it means for the rest of the community. It's really, really a frustrating development. You know, it matters. Now, I guess we should say, first of all, that in terms of monetization on YouTube, you're not making a ton of money, right? It's especially as a knife channel, you know, if you want to make money on YouTube, you know, you should not be making knife videos. You know, maybe try, I don't know, just about anything else. But the point I want to make is, you know, you're not going to make tons of money through YouTube ad revenue. And taking away that little revenue is kind of a slap in the face, because YouTube needs creators in order to survive, right? The whole point is that YouTube creates the platform, and content creators are then able to utilize that platform to, by the way, YouTube's benefit more so than the creators' content. Oftentimes, creators, you know, in the knife community for sure, are spending their own money on these knives, and they just love knives and they're enthusiastic about it and they want to share it. So they're not doing it for the money anyway, but the money does say, from, you know, it's YouTube sort of saying, hey, look, we appreciate that what you're doing has some value. In fact, we're advertising on it, and you ought to see some of the benefit of that advertising. All right. So I want to put that out there right from the start, and just point out, yeah, you're not going to make a living, but it is important to show, I think, some return on effort. All right. And perhaps, you know, YouTube, and perhaps it can cover some of the expenses. I'll give you my own example. You know, I'm not a huge creator, and that's going to be, you know, that's going to be given away by the example I'm giving. I was able to save up the ad revenue that I make from YouTube for a few months. Okay. And in order, and by doing that, I was able to get my hands on this We Knives Synapse. So cool knife, didn't kind of cost me anything, because it did come from primarily ad revenue generated through the channel. Okay, so kind of cool, but that also tells you what kind of money we're talking about. Like, we're talking about, you know, $50 a month or something like that. So that's just for me. I know Metal Complex is bigger and gets a lot more views, so he would make more, but nonetheless, the point is, we're not talking about a huge amount of money. But it's enough, guys, that it matters. Okay, it does matter when YouTube decides to cut off those funds, and more so, the question becomes why, right? Why would this company, who needs creators to continue making content, punish those creators, especially when, you know, especially when it's a creator that makes as much content as Metal Complex? He pours out videos like it's his job. It's incredible the amount of content that he's able to come up with. And I try, listen, I try to produce a lot of content, and I can't keep up with him, not even close. All right. And, you know, I will say, from YouTube's perspective, the screenshot that Metal Complex shared on the channel specifically says, you know, because you have content showing modification or sale of weapons that may result in injury to others. This includes links to offsite sales. All right. So that's YouTube's explanation. And so Metal Complex is showing the creation or modification or sale of weapons? No. First of all, the suggestion that a knife is primarily a weapon is to fly in the face of common sense and common use. All right. It would be the equivalent to saying a hammer is primarily a weapon, right? It's primarily a cutting tool, a knife, just as a hammer is primarily a pounding tool. Does it have potential as a weapon? Well, for sure, right? There's no question about that. But that we don't use that designation primarily when we talk about tools. And if you look at the usage of knives, they're used for cutting stuff, all right? And in fact, if you want to think about knife crime at all, most knife crime, in fact, for all intents and purposes, you can say all knife crime is carried out with knives that are not folding pocket knives. They're not knives that someone who wants a useful tool to be with them on a regular basis is carrying around. That's not the source of knife crime. So it would be stupid to try to address knife crime by addressing folding knives. And I know many countries try to do that. That's because governments are generally stupid. I know I'm getting into a little bit of a rant here. Let's get back to the subject at hand. But think about it, guys, right? A hammer, a 2x4, a fist, a bike, a car, a brick, right? All of these things could potentially be used as weapons defensively or offensively and it doesn't make sense to classify something that is used 99.99% of the time as a tool to say, well, no, now we as YouTube have decided that this is a weapon. That is just asinine. All right, moving on. I don't want to get too much into politics, but I have to say that YouTube has a pretty strong liberal bias, which is fine. As a company, I have no big problem with companies acting within their beliefs, right? And now I will say society often does, right? If the company has Christian beliefs, then that could be a problem. Anyway, I'm not going to get into that, but YouTube saying, well, our liberal biases are going to be reflected in the kind of content we allow on our platform. That is, to me, a little bit problematic. And in a free society, and claiming to be a platform, okay, that is a little bit problematic. There's a general principle we normally buy into that says, hey, you shouldn't push your biases too much in your business practices. All right, I'm not saying I'm not super sensitive. If I go into a store that has a Buddha or an altar to a god where they're burning incense, I don't care. I'm not going to be like, oh, forget it. I'm not doing business with these people. I don't do that, and I don't think anyone should. But I hope you get my point. I will add a short political discussion here, okay? In the discussion or the comparison between liberal versus conservative, the biggest sort of difference, I guess, the most, if you get down to sort of philosophical brass tacks, it's primarily a comparison or a prioritizing of the individual versus the collective. Okay, most conservatives are going to believe that freedom and responsibility of the individual take precedent over the power of the state. This translates directly into knives and guns and other tools because a conservative then is more likely to say, my well-being is my responsibility and no one else's, and I need certain items to ensure that my well-being is cared for. I want to be self-sufficient as much as I possibly can. Well, the liberal end of the spectrum is more likely to say your well-being is the state's responsibility and therefore you don't need those items. All right. And so there is a connection to politics here for people who want to carry a knife as a tool. So with all that being said, it's no big surprise that given those political biases, YouTube doesn't have a big issue with making decisions that impact those who value self-sufficiency. All right, it's kind of a key characteristic which motivates someone to carry a folding knife. Someone who carries a knife, they probably feel that they're going to be able to take on whatever problems they face in the day. They don't feel like those responsibilities should be defaulted to anyone else. And we know this this kind of thing happened to gun channels a little while back. Now, I do want to add something here that I think is important. All right, and that is everyone, liberal or conservative or whatever other political bent you could think up, all right, your well-being is your responsibility. Okay. As a first responder myself, I can tell you we're probably 10 or 15 minutes away, right? And sometimes more. And so if you're bleeding out, if you've opened a major artery, you may not have that long. You better know something about how to stop that bleeding other than lay there and die until an ambulance shows up. All right. If your stove is on fire, by the time we show up, it's going to be your kitchen. So you better have some mechanism by which you can address that emergency right away and take matters into your own hands before and not be thinking to yourself, well, I'm just going to totally rely on first responders to solve whatever problems I come up against, because first responders are really not first responders. They're second responders. You're the first responder. All right, sorry guys, rant done. Okay. Let's get back to what I was saying. To reiterate, this did happen a couple of years ago to gun channels. And, that to me was a great frustration and a great concern, because I watch a lot of gun content. I really enjoy that content. And it's frustrating to see it taken away. And so I hope that Metal Complex is not the canary in the coal mine here. And I would go so far as to say, I want to do more than just hope. All right. I think beyond just hoping that this doesn't go any further and that Metal Complex's channel is reinstated, you might recall there was a YouTube channel that completely got taken down two or 3 years ago, and it turned out to be either a mistake or an over what would you say? Somebody was overly zealous in taking it down. Anyway, back to my point. I think, yes, we want to hope that this is not the way things are going for YouTube, but I would suggest that we need to do more than hope. At the very least, we need to be looking seriously at alternatives to YouTube and taking some steps to promote those, to at least send a signal to YouTube that, hey, you're not the only game in town. And if you make these kind of stupid decisions, we are going to go elsewhere. Maybe, we start using Signal or Parler. Signal is not a video app. I get that, but it's a communication app. Parler. In fact, so what I'm going to do, instead of going into this whole list, I'm going to link a NordVPN article where they specifically bring up a bunch of alternatives to YouTube, where, we could potentially move some of this content. And if you're watching this and you've got suggestions about good video platforms, I have done some things on Vimeo before. But if you're familiar with other good video platforms, I would love to hear that down in the comments. And perhaps I will start at least, simultaneously, uploading to both YouTube and some other video platform in case things do go south and YouTube really does set their sights on content creators that are related to knives. Thanks a lot for watching. Thanks a lot for listening. I hope you'll take some steps to encourage other creators. Like, subscribe, comment, let them know that you're watching, let them know that you're enjoying, and even give them constructive feedback. Any comment you make helps with the algorithm. So even if you want to go down in the comments and say, Kevin, you're the biggest idiot who's ever lived, that's great. That helps the channel. Okay, so and you wouldn't be alone for sure. Listen, I get a lot of that kind of stuff. So there you go, guys. Thanks a lot for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe. I would love to see some feedback on this down in the comments. And make sure you go over, watch Metal Complex's video, share that video, and put the word out as much as you can about this misapplication of YouTube's rules. Thanks a lot. We'll talk to you later.